The stories you're about to hear come from England in the late 1300s, a time when life was hard, short, and often ended in unexpected ways. They are based on real coroners' rolls, official records made when people died suddenly or suspiciously. The clerks who recorded them weren't trying to tell stories. They were simply writing the facts quickly and briefly as they could, then move on. To make those statements come alive, I filled in context, character, and reasonable detail. The result is storytelling, rooted in real events, shaped from the truth, and fully possible as told. The Not Knight in Not Much Armor. If you think people only started making spectacularly bad decisions in modern times, you would be wrong. Whether they did not see swimming as a skill or they just did not see it as a necessity, we don't know. What we do know is it was not uncommon to hear of drownings, and the coroner often described such occurrences in brief, short statements. Man drowned bathing himself in the river. Woman slipped from riverbank and drowned. They overlooked the drownings as pure accidents and did not spend much effort into descriptions. But in this case, they took notice. The story appeared in a London Township Manor account book from the year 1392. It was the sort used to record rents, repairs, and the occasional human error so obvious that even a medieval clerk felt compelled to write more description of it. The clerk does not even sound surprised, though, which tells you everything you need to know. The man's name was Hugh Atet Dane, which simply translated to Hugh from the Valley. He was not a knight, at least not in the official sense. He was what you might call a squire, a man who served alongside knights and had developed strong opinions about warfare, armor, and the importance of being seen as impressive. The knight Hugh had served and trained under had died unexpectedly the previous season, leaving him to serve the governor until he could be reassigned to another knight. In the manner of his profession, Hugh never had a day off. His work consumed him 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and his job was important. He believed he was destined for something grander. Hugh also had ambitions. He envisioned himself rising higher, becoming a favored knight, perhaps marrying a wealthy heiress, or earning royal recognition. With that would come land, authority over manners, and status far above the peasants and common folk. For now, though, he settled for the self-importance he had already assigned himself within the community. Hugh did not consider himself an ordinary man, and he wanted everyone else to know it. To Hugh, respect had a very specific sound. It was metallic. It clanked. It announced itself. Hugh wore his armor whenever he could, because armor made an impression, but not all of it, because armor was expensive, but enough to make a statement. He wore a chest plate with a shirt of chainmail, with several gaping holes in it, a damaged helmet that was missing the faceplate, which rendered it nearly useless in battle, but very effective at showing off his face, and a single armored leg. Why only one leg remains a mystery, but it certainly gave him a memorable silhouette. It was a cool summer afternoon. When Hugh and his friends walked down the village lane, they basked in the attention they drew in. The metal announced him well before he spoke. People looked up from their work. The blacksmith paused, then quietly returned inside, hoping Hugh wasn't there to collect taxes. The bread seller narrowed his eyes, sensing paperwork on the horizon. Children pointed and stared with excitement. Hugh accepted all of this as confirmation that he was indeed important. The friends walking beside him took whatever attention remained. They came upon the manor's drainage ditch, which ran toward the outskirts of town. Its purpose was simple: to carry water away from fields so the crops would not rot. Most of the time, it was little more than shallow, steady flow. But not that day. Heavy rainfall throughout the previous few days had caused the ditch to fill completely with rushing water. It was roughly 6 feet wide and around 4 feet deep, and the footbridge that normally crossed it had several broken supports. Villagers had been warned to stay away until repairs were made. Another bridge, inconveniently farther away, was being used in the meanwhile. One of his friends looked at him and laughed. "Jump it, you could make it." Then noticed that people were watching him with mild curiosity, as if daring him to accept the challenge. Another friend challenged, "You can do it. Look at the beautiful ladies watching you." And looking in the direction, he had indeed seen a group of young ladies watching him, giggling. A smile crossed his face. He nodded in their direction, acknowledging the attention, and they giggled louder in obvious infatuation of his knightly self, he surmised. One friend, having walked closer to the edge, looked down at the rushing water and turned back toward Hugh and warned, "I don't think that's a good idea," he said. "The water looks deep and is moving fast." Hugh looked from his friends to the women, to the villagers watching with mild curiosity, some shaking their heads in disapproval. In that brief moment, he made his decision. He stepped back a few paces and adjusted his helmet. He rolled his shoulders, stretched his arms, and prepared himself with the confidence of someone who had never tested this idea before. Hugh began to run. His armor clanked optimistically, and his boots struck the ground with more enthusiasm than coordination. As he reached the edge of the ditch, Hugh leapt. For a moment, just long enough to give everyone false hope, Hugh landed short. He tried to stand, but couldn't find footing. He tried to crawl out, but the armor only made things worse, dragging him down. People rushed forward, and calls for a rope echoed through the town. However, by the time a rope had arrived, Hugh had gone completely under. Within minutes, he had vanished into the depths of the water with no further sign of him. No one dared to venture after him, for they feared for their own lives. The outcome was obvious. He had to be dead. His body was recovered the next day, having been found swept farther along the ditch. The clerk recorded the incident without embellishment. He did not moralize it. There was no tribute reserved for a beloved or highly respected man. He wrote just the facts. A man wearing partial armor attempted to leap a drainage ditch. The armor did not help. He drowned. The ditch continued to do its job quietly and efficiently, carrying water away from the fields and occasionally removing confidence from men who offered it freely. Medieval history recorded the lesson without commentary because none was necessary. Metal sinks. Gravity does not negotiate, and confidence on its own floats only briefly.